Hello, Circuit Riders! Welcome to our first Nomadiversary episode. On May 14th, we celebrated 1 year of full-time living. Yay! So we wanted to sit down and have a chat about what we've learned this year, or as I like to call it, the quirks of RV living. And spoiler alert, stay tuned until the end of the video because we have some exciting news coming up about plans that we are working on. If you like what you've seen from us this year, hit that like button. And if you're new to our channel, welcome! We're so glad you found us. Just a quick introduction if you are new. I'm Lisa.
I'm Jason.
We have been married for 28 years and we have 2 children. Jaron is 23 and he lives in Connecticut, and Bryn is 20 and she and her boyfriend James live in the Boston area. So that means we are relatively new empty nesters.
Before this all started, we'd been thinking about ways to be more location independent, maybe nomadic, but certainly move around and see more of the world, the country, and be on the road. We were living in Connecticut and really wanted to get out of the Northeast during winters, especially Lisa, but I kind of agreed with her. And the work that I did allowed me to travel a lot in a whole big region along the East Coast, working with leaders, particularly pastors who were starting new churches. So between being empty nesters, my travel, and Lisa's virtual assistant job, that was sort of the perfect combo to make this choice.
We had planned to start RVing full-time in March of 2020, but we were delayed a couple of months by the pandemic, and we ended up living with my parents in Lancaster, Pennsylvania for several weeks waiting for our RV dealership to reopen.
We'd gone from being fresh empty nesters, ready to strike out our own, our kids were set up, to having our daughter move back in with us and living in the basement of my in-laws, which was actually really delightful, but it's funny to say it that way.
Everything was finally ready, and we took off in our 2020 Van Lee Volano on May 14th. So we named ourselves the Circuit Ridin' RV, and I'd say we've traveled 2 definite circuits over the past year. The first was our shakedown trip, which took about 4 months. We used Lancaster as a hub, and we went down to Virginia, and then up to Cape Cod, the Adirondacks in Maine, and then back to Lancaster. We were glad we stayed relatively close that first few months because we had a major hydraulic blowout and had to come back to our dealer for about a week. But that's why they call it a shakedown. So like I said, that first circuit took about 4 months, and then we left Lancaster again on September 15th to start our second, much bigger circuit. We really felt like we were leaving for real. Our second circuit took us through the southeastern US over to Texas and back. Wow, what a wonderful adventure we've had, and you can go watch all of our videos. But one thing people ask us is if we have a favorite place that we've visited so far. So we each probably have different places, but I think my favorites were Mobile, Alabama and Louisville, Kentucky. In both of those places, we didn't really know much about the areas, and we were just blown away by how much there was to do and all the history to learn there. We probably never would have thought to visit those places if we hadn't been RVing because we just didn't know much about them.
And I definitely agree with the Louisville, Kentucky, especially how little time we gave for that, because it was a last-minute change in knowing we can go back and do it even more fully. And I really did enjoy Mobile, Alabama, but it was the low country of the East Coast, the southern North Carolina through South Carolina and Georgia, that I really loved, particularly like Jekyll Island, the Golden Isles, that area. It had this interesting blend of some coastal stuff similar to what I know in New England, but with a whole different layer and different culture in there. So there's both some familiar pieces and really fun differences there as well. So those are my 2 favorite, to say the least.
Yep. Okay, so now on to the quirks of RV life. Here are 10 things that we have had to adjust to this year while living full-time on the road. The first thing we had to figure out before we got on the road was what domicile state we were going to register ourselves in, because we got rid of our home and we had no mailing address anywhere, but the U.S. decided that everyone needs to have a mailing address regardless of how remote or nomadic you are.
And not just any mailing address. So you have to live somewhere. Even if it's sort of on paper, it has to be a real thing, not a P.O. box or whatever, so that you can get legal documents, you have an official residence, because so many things are tied to that. So we had to figure that out, and we had the freedom to figure it out, but also we had no idea at first how to figure that out.
So we've talked about this a little bit before, but there's 3 basic states that are friendly to RV, full-time RVers. It's Florida, Texas, and South Dakota. And for many different reasons, we decided to go with South Dakota. So we flew up to South Dakota for 48 hours, and we got our driver's licenses and we registered our vehicles there eventually after we bought them, which allowed us to pay South Dakota sales tax on those vehicles, which was much lower than in Connecticut. So overall, I think this year it hasn't been a problem for us. We have South Dakota license plates on our truck and on our RV, and
which is funny because people say, "Oh, you've come a long way." Like,
wow, you're from South Dakota?
Yeah, I've been there for 48 hours total.
We're not from there,
but it's good. It works out for us. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So another quirk is you literally need to be somewhere every night. And it's not quite the same as when you have a house. You know where you're going to be most nights, or you're on vacation, whatever, you know. You had to pick it and plan it or end up somewhere. So for us, we tend to plan things pretty far in advance. We like having enough structure to then have lots of fun when we're there. And so with us, we picked 1,000 Trails membership was the main way that we figured out how to pick where we're going to be and have the right combo of lots of freedom but not endless choices.
And with 1,000 Trails, we can pretty much book either 60 or 120 days in advance, and we love to do that. So I know that some RVers like to fly by the seat of their pants, and they don't know where they're going to stay at night, or they might boondock more often, or they might just drive up to an RV park and say, "Hey, do you have a spot?" But that would really stress me out. It stresses me out even thinking about it.
The bigger picture is you have to get used to a new place for the amount of time you're going to be there. So if you're moving every 2 or 3 days, I imagine you just don't bother paying attention. If you're in a seasonal site, you really get to know a place. But we tend to be in that middle zone of 1 to 3 weeks. So depending on your attitude, your perspective, and what's available, that might be a fun adventure or a little bit frustrating. But we actually tend to like figuring out the nooks and crannies of a neighborhood, a region, and the back roads. And one of the things that we picked up, especially back when I had a sabbatical in a foreign country and some other travels, is this idea of having sort of an expat lens. Whether you're actually ever going to expatriate, but we've kind of brought that over into RVing. If we were to live in Mobile, Alabama, what would be our hardware store? Where's the hospital? Those are important things. But what's the park you'd go to? What would be a favorite walk? And I'd recommend that. Just places you're traveling, think, if I were going to live here, what would I look for and do instead? And it's just a different way of changing out of a tourist mode, which is a fun mode to be in as well, to just, you see things differently. So that's kind of a fun thing that we've added into our RV traveling, and it's a little quirk. Getting to know an area, however surface or really deep, or in some weird, funny ways that
right,
you
because
want to
when you're full-time RVing, you're not just visiting a place for a vacation, you're living there. Whether you're living there for 2 days or 2 months, that's where you live.
Along with picking where you live, often that goes together with your mail delivery. So if you're always moving around, how do you get your packages? Amazon, other places, that's not as hard. But like actual mail, people trying to send you stuff, or legal things. So you need a mail delivery service is usually the way to do it. Or you work with a relative and have them be your mailing address. We did not want to put our relatives through that because we get a lot of stuff. So we got a mail delivery service in South Dakota.
A
mail forwarding service in South Dakota. And back to the 3 states, Florida, Texas, and South Dakota. Because they're so good for full-time travelers, that's also where these companies have set up their business. And so there's usually a bunch of choices. You could do your research. We picked a good one that we've had great experience with.
Yeah, we use America's Mailbox, and basically I send in a shipment order to them about once a month, sometimes more often if there's something important up there. But any mail that comes in, they set it aside in our box, and then I tell them on this day, ship it to this campground, and they send it. I keep a fund there, for postage that needs to be replenished, and it's great because they get rid of all my junk mail.
Yeah, they shred that, so that's even better.
So even though I get a mail shipment once a month, I only get maybe 3 to 5 pieces of mail in there, and I get a scan every time the envelope comes in, so I can see what it is, and I can tell them if they should shred it or ignore it or save it or whatever. And then other ways that we get mail, we mostly order stuff from Amazon. and so we've used Amazon lockers a lot. Some campgrounds will accept Amazon, but some won't. So every time we get to a new place, we have to figure out what is the system here. Will they accept packages? Are they going to charge us to accept a package? Should we send it to a post office for general delivery? Should we send it to an Amazon locker? And how far away are those? So
should we wait another 2 weeks till we're at a place where it's easier and not deal with it at the particular campground we're at? That's always a backup.
We've been learning about delayed gratification sometimes.
Yeah.
And then general delivery at a post office is when a post office will accept something that all you do is you write your name and general delivery in the town, and the post office will hold it for you to come pick up. Not supposedly every post office is supposed to do that for you, but I've run into
not all of them are fans of
especially
doing it,
in Texas, who were less than cooperative about doing that. So always make sure that you call the post office
send
first.
It to your friends in Oklahoma and get all your stuff there, and have them.
But there's always ways to get stuff.
Yeah.
That's our point. You can always get it if you need it. Internet is a huge deal when you're a full-time RVer, especially if you're trying to work from your rig like we are. Jason works full-time, I work part-time, and we have several Zoom calls each week that we need to be on. We are constantly accessing apps and different programs on our computers that we need for our work. So we have bought a package through a website called Mobile Must Haves, and I'll put that link down below.
It's essentially, just think Road Warrior setup. It's got a heavy-duty antenna that pulls in lots of things. You can have 2 different SIM cards, which is the little card that tells you which phone carrier is your data supplier. So lots of nerd details there, but we had to figure that out, and I think we did a pretty good job.
Yeah, it's worked really well for us. I would say there's probably been about 3 or 4 times this year where even with our setup, we still could not get a great signal at an RV park. And so what we do in those cases is
drive to the internet.
If we have a Zoom call or something that we need, we drive to the internet. We go to a Walmart parking lot, or McDonald's parking lot or Starbucks, wherever has Wi-Fi.
You have a Zoom call today? Where are you going? I got to go drive to the internet.
We just go find it. But mostly it's been great, and we're going to do a project this summer of drilling a hole in our roof to mount the antenna on top of our roof.
Which will probably improve its performance even more so than it's already been.
Yeah, and we'll be sure and show you that when we do it. One thing we love about being on the road is trying different grocery stores, which may sound a little funny, but we treat grocery stores as a tourist destination.
Well, and we actually done that for years.
Even when we lived in a house.
Doing a day trip, we'd decide to go to some little grocery store out in the middle of nowhere. Who knows why? It's just some funny thing that walking around a tiny grocery store, getting whatever local thing that they have there, or paying twice as much to support apparently a local economy. Just, anyway, puts a smile on our face.
So one thing that I've been having fun with this year is collecting grocery cards. Each store has that little discount card, or sometimes you put in your phone number at the register and get a discount. So, man, I've got probably 15 or 20 of them now. And everywhere we go around the country, I just put in my phone number or I show my card, and I just think it's just a fun collecting game for me. But we've been having fun learning about the different grocery chains around the country and who sells what. And, sometimes it can be frustrating because you can't find your favorite brand of things that you like or you're used to. But I've found that we often try new things that we wouldn't have otherwise because the store carries something different. So that's all just part of the journey and adventure.
And especially the different types of travel. There's regional stuff. Pork is huge in parts of the South. Mm-hmm. Chicken might be somewhere else. Beef in Texas.
Yep.
And then seasonings and different, low country boil ingredients in one place is different than a seafood boil in New England.
Yep.
And so we did stuff like that too, which is lots of fun. So,
laundry. If you watched my favorite things about our Van Lee video that I did way back when, I mentioned that we do not have a washer and dryer in our rig, and we purposely chose not to because we wanted the extra storage space in our closet, and we do have a dishwasher here, which is my favorite thing ever, and I don't really care about having a washer and dryer. So that means that every time I need to do laundry, I need to find a new place to do laundry because we're never in the same place twice. So mostly I use campground laundry rooms.
Those have been pretty good. Like those
They've
tend
been
to be, and it's convenient. You can go set it up, come back to your spot. Increasingly, they use apps that will
for
ping
the most
you.
part,
It's
they're
just
very
pretty
nice,
straightforward.
and you can sometimes pay with credit card, and the machines are nice. Now, if we're at a campground where the machines are yucky, or they're old, or they're dirty, or sometimes broken down, I'll just wait another week to do laundry. It's really no big deal.
Yeah, we don't go into town. We just wait. So.
Yeah.
So managing your resources, your utilities sort of come with you or you plug in there, but the things that you have to stay on top of are your propane, your water quality, your electric. And this is not a how-to here, but just know that you have to pay attention to those because you're going to, run those every once in a while. And that's different than being hooked up to whether it's a septic system or a public utility where you literally flush it and for the most part, forget about it. You can't quite forget about it when you're in an RV because you will have to deal with all of it later. So that's one of the other quirks.
For example, managing your black and gray tanks. So you don't only have to manage what's going into them, but you have to manage getting it out of there. One thing I've heard other RVers say, and we have found this to be true, is that you are much more in tune with the weather when you are RVing. Because nature is so close to you and you're purposely putting yourself in beautiful locations, that means that weather can affect you more than it would if you're in a house. Your RV is more vulnerable and not quite as sturdy, so we really need to be careful and watch out for forecasts that are coming up, any kind of weather alerts. We've got apps on our phone that will alert us if the wind will be over a certain speed or if there's, weather statements or alerts or emergency anything. It's always dinging on our phone so that we know ahead of time and we can prepare.
Now on the flip side with weather, if you have enough warning, like a hurricane season or something, you literally can pick up and leave. Tornadoes, as you can watch with one of our videos, you don't have as much warning with those, though you sometimes get some. So you can also follow better weather, certainly the seasonal weather, but occasionally stuff like, it's going to be a 2 weeks of rain here. Let's just move.
Yeah.
And you can do that when your house hooks up to your truck and drives down the road.
And speaking of other RVers, I love to watch rigs coming in and out of the campground. It's one reason that I like staying at RV parks rather than like boondocking in the woods. We love to rig watch, is what I call it.
And by we, mostly you.
It's mostly me. But sometimes if I see rigs coming in, I'll just cozy up to the window and I'll just watch them. What kind of rig do they have? Where do you think they're coming from?
The biggest high-def screen in the whole thing. It's the giant window.
Where's their license plate from? How far did they travel? So I love doing that, and I've taken to having a tradition now of I take a picture of my window at every spot that we're at, and I have this window view album in my photographs.
Now, of course, it's a slideshow of dozens and dozens.
Right.
It's a little different, but it's a really fun way to capture some of that and be reminded.
And sometimes it's a beautiful vista, and sometimes it's the side of someone else's RV.
Yeah, sometimes it's overlooking a seemingly RV graveyard that occasionally has animal control come through.
You just never know.
You could probably watch that video up here somewhere as well.
So those are the things that we have adjusted to this first year of RV living, and I wouldn't say that there's anything that really has thrown us off. It's just
I was
big
ask
adventure.
You, would you trade the lifestyle we have for any of the, like, for you, what's that, because you like change a little less than I do.
Yeah. But no, I've really embraced it, and I love the moving around, and the pace that we've been going I think is really good, and I'm always game to learn about a new area, and I love learning the history of it and also what's the current state of the people who live here.
So the things we mentioned of quirks, we wanted to correct for some of that or give a balance. Having a domicile in South Dakota, that's a legal address, but that's not really a place to return to. Well, we have to return there every 5 years. Lancaster is a wonderful place to cycle through because of family, and our dealerships are there. We like that that's a bit of a place we orbit, but we wanted a special place to go back to again and again. Sort of a secondary home base to fit in with all the other stuff. So, as you know, I grew up in northern Maine. We have a lot of things we love about this state, and some of us like all the seasons, others only 1.5 of the seasons. But it's a beautiful place. I grew up here, we know it. So, what did we just do?
We have taken the leap, and we have just bought 50 acres of undeveloped woodland in the Maine woods.
Yeah, and you may be asking yourself, and I understand the questions, is that enough? Will you have room? Where are you going to put all your stuff? And I think we're going to be okay. And it's just a beautiful place for us to come back to again and again. Of course, it won't be our year-round home, at least not for many years, probably ever. But gorgeous place to go in the summer. Maybe get there in the fall for some colors, and occasionally, at least some of the family may come up for snowmobiling and skiing, and we'll have to have like a 4-season cabin though at that point for everyone to come up and be there at least for a little bit.
Maybe holidays. I would do a holiday. And I love that we are so close to Canada. The land that we have bought is literally 10 minutes from the Canadian border of New Brunswick. And so we are super excited about exploring Canada while we're up here as well. Over the next few weeks, we're going to do what I'm calling the pit stop. We have been riding the circuit for over a year now. And this summer, we're making a pit stop in northern Maine to kind of slow down for a little bit and be in one place for a while. Over the next several weeks, we are going to show you around northern Maine, and we've got some projects that we're going to tackle, and we'll take you on this journey with us of buying land and getting started. We're not sure how far we're going to get this summer on the land, so we'll just show you as much as we can, and we'll do what we can before we leave in the fall for our 3rd circuit trip. So we hope you'll join us for this new adventure by hitting that subscribe button below. Oh, by the way, we have passed 100 subscribers. Thank you so much to all of you. 100 subscribers is kind of the first milestone that you can reach with a YouTube channel. And now we are allowed to customize our URL. So instead of this ugly thing, now it's this. Isn't that pretty?
Hey, if you're not interested in our summer pit stop plans that Lisa mentioned, you certainly can wait till we get back to full-time RVing. So either way, join us, take a break, and we're just happy you're along for the journey.
And thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time, and remember to get out and explore outside your door. Bye.